Hey guys, Josh here today. We are here to do a review of the F1 2016 Australian Grand Prix. The first round then of the 2016 season was certainly a good one, to be honest. If I had to give it a rating out of 10, I'd probably give it a solid 8 really. It was really good fun to finally see all the Formula 1 teams in action for the 2016 season. On paper, it was Rosberg, Hamilton, Vettel. Sounds pretty normal, you know, Mercedes, Ferrari, but it was so much deeper than that. There were so many interesting points as well, all the way through the field. Some really interesting strategical battles. Admittedly, there wasn't that much kind of on-track action, but there was plenty of action happening in the pits and just kind of general strategy that made this race really exciting and really tense. It was kind of hard to know who was going to win in the end, but in the end it was Nico Rosberg winning his 4th race in a row. I'm really pleased in terms of from a neutral perspective, because of course that's pretty much me when it comes to the front of the field. I'm not really too bothered, but I probably prefer it if a Rosberg or Vettel win this year, but I don't really have a major preference. I just want a close fight. But in terms of a neutral perspective, it's really good that Rosberg has won, because we know Hamilton's going to be strong in a lot of other races, so it's good to see Rosberg's already got a bit of an advantage, because we know Hamilton can come back, but we're not too sure on Rosberg. I think one of the major things as well is that even though Rosberg was slower this weekend, he still won the race, and that's something, if you want to win a World Championship, you have to do, and that's probably one of the things that's lost Nico Rosberg the championship, particularly in 2014 and 2015 as well, because Rosberg usually only wins on weekends where he's the fastest driver, which does sound a bit strange, but you know, you guys can kind of think about what I mean there. And for example, Rosberg might be the quickest driver on the weekend, he might have a couple of tenths in hand, but somehow Hamilton will still win the race by maybe pushing Rosberg wide at turn 1, or you know, just really putting in the laps when it counts. And you know, that way Hamilton picks up wins when Rosberg's fastest, but also of course when Hamilton's fastest, it's nearly always Hamilton that brings home the win. When he's on, you know, when he's on really on it that weekend, he usually does take home the win. But when Rosberg's on it, sometimes he does slip up, he sometimes makes mistakes, or you know, just generally is not able to show the pace again in the race. So it was really good to see Rosberg winning when he wasn't the fastest this weekend. That was probably Hamilton, it was the fastest driver this weekend. But it's really good to see Nico Rosberg as well, getting his elbows out into turn 1 and really making a stand. And it was a great win for Rosberg then, his 4th win in a row, as I mentioned. And he used all 3 tyre compounds as well, which is pretty cool. Great strategy from the Mercedes to change to the medium tyres after the red flag. That proved to be a really good move, and certainly a superior strategy. But still, Rosberg brought it home very calmly indeed. But not much pressure from Hamilton, so really, for me, my prediction remains I still think Hamilton is going to win this year's championship. But let's talk about Sebastian Vettel though. What a disappointing race for Ferrari and Sebastian Vettel. The really is probably going to go down as a race that got away from Ferrari now. Maurizio Arriva has come out and said, you know, it doesn't matter what strategy we chose, we might not have won even if we'd have gone onto the gone onto the medium tyres after the red flag, but they chose the super softs and then soft tactic. They choose to make an extra stop after the red flag, so that's their decision, and you know, they've got to live with it now. I mean, Vettel, you know, did make that mistake. I'm not quite sure if Vettel would have got past Hamilton. He did seem, you know, fairly far away when he made that mistake. I mean, he was within a second, but I'm not sure if he was really within striking distance. It would have been very nip and tuck, but I'm guessing because of the degradation of the you know, tyres, especially those mediums that Hamilton had been on for a lot longer than Vettel had been on his soft tyres. I think Hamilton's tyres would have probably gone away even more in the last couple of laps, and I think Vettel might just have got him, so he might have cost himself second place there. 3 valuable points that Vettel and Ferrari might rue later on in the season. But you know, I'm still not convinced that Ferrari will be able to challenge Mercedes on a consistent basis. Certainly not in qualifying, and of course that's a crucial thing. They can't get the start they got today in every single race, so I can't see Ferrari mounting a challenge against Mercedes or Vettel mounting a challenge against Rosberg or Hamilton through, you know, for the whole season. But certainly odd races like the race today, and usually Ferrari are really good at taking their chances. We've seen in the past when they get into the lead, they manage to stay there. Singapore, Hungary, of course, both spring to mind, where Mercedes were off the pace or making mistakes, and Ferrari were there to capitalise. Today, though, they weren't, and that's a race win that got away. But I guess it's to be expected. Ferrari do usually take their chances, so I don't think they should be too worried. The main thing though is to come back fighting in Bahrain, a track they were pretty fast at last year. I believe Raikkonen managed to split the Mercedes, and Vettel had a bit of a wobbler, so that should be pretty interesting to see what happens this year in Bahrain. Rosberg isn't too strong at Bahrain, but both Hamilton and Vettel are very strong, so that should be an interesting battle between those two in Bahrain. But of course Rosberg is still probably going to be there, and let's hope we have another Bahrain 2014, because that track you can overtake at. Whereas Melbourne certainly is not the best track for overtaking, and that was pretty evident today. Daniel Ricciardo then, the home favourite, was 4th ahead of Felipe Massa. Great job from both of them, and particularly Daniel Ricciardo and the Red Bull team. They've got a very, very quick race car, and I would not be surprised if they can get 3rd in the Constructors this year, and I think they'll be fairly pleased with that. And the Renault engine actually looks pretty decent, I'd say. I mean, it's certainly not there with the Mercedes or the Ferrari, but it's certainly a lot closer, and it seems to be a country mile ahead of the Honda. So comfortably, I think Renault do have the 3rd fastest engine, and it's certainly, I think, they have made gains on both Mercedes and Ferrari. That was pretty evident because the straight line speed does seem to be a lot better. I think Ricciardo was, in the top 5 in the speed trap, so impressive top line speed from the Red Bull should really, really help them this year. Major upgrade as well coming for Canada. Ricciardo seemed very, very excited about that, so we'll see if that makes any difference, but he's saying he can challenge, for podiums and maybe even a race win with that upgrade. So, we'll have to see. I do doubt it. We had the same promise last year, so we'll see how it works out this time. But of course, if it all goes wrong, Red Bull only have themselves to blame now, of course, with them developing their own engine. Massa then 5th. Yeah, good result I think for Williams, considering they were not very quick this weekend. Quite worrying for Williams. I think they've discovered if this race, of course, if's the operative word, if this race is representative of the whole season, then Williams are probably going to be about 4th or 5th in the Constructors. The Red Bull do seem to be, ahead of Williams by quite some way, but currently in Constructors, Williams are ahead of Red Bull, and they'll be very, very keen to keep it that way as the field heads to Bahrain. Romain Grosjean then, great job from him for the Haas team, scoring 8 points rather for the new American team in Formula 1. What a great debut for the whole Haas team. Romain Grosjean, my driver of the day, and undoubtedly Haas as well, and my team of the day. Yes, okay, they were incredibly lucky with the timing of the red flag, which promoted him all the way up to, it wasn't 6th place at the time, but eventually it would be 6th when everyone else pits. I don't think Grosjean even had to, pass anyone after the red flag, so he did a really, really good job though. He didn't have too much pressure from behind, to be fair, but I'm sure if Grosjean would have made a mistake, they'd have been right there. But yeah, surprising lack of pace as well from Force India. Both Force India and Williams struggling for pace, while the likes of Toro Rosso, Red Bull, and even the Haas team do seem to be arguably ahead, or at least there or thereabouts. So yeah, not a great day for Force India, but still a great job from Hülkenberg to bring the car home 7th. Bottas was 8th. Pretty decent recovery drive from Bottas, but his progress was pretty much halted when he got to the Force India of Hülkenberg. Couldn't really progress any further than that. Possibly symbolic of the championship. Maybe Force India can beat Williams this year. That should definitely be an interesting fight for the second best Mercedes supplied team, the best Mercedes customer team. That's the fight for. Sainz and Verstappen then were 9th and 10th. Yeah, interesting day for Toro Rosso. I think they'll probably have some kind of meeting probably right now. While you're listening to this, they're probably having quite a big discussion between the two of them. A bit of controversy there with Toro Rosso, which has been kind of bubbling up as well over these last few races. We saw it quite a bit in 2015 in Hungary, Singapore, of course, where we had that kind of controversial letting them through, having a go, and then letting them back through, but then Verstappen refusing to let Sainz back through in Singapore. And I think this was kind of a bit of a comeback from Sainz, and a bit of a bold statement, because Verstappen's kind of been walking all over him, and not in terms of pace, because they've been pretty equal, but in terms of Verstappen seems to think he's the number one, and I was very glad that Sainz stood up for himself and refused to get out of the way for Verstappen. I mean, it was a bit ridiculous, to be honest, but Verstappen would expect Sainz just to hop out the way. I don't like that tactic of just kind of one hopping out the way and having another go. It's just all very, very messy. Like, if you want to get past someone, you got to get past them. Yes, okay, there's dirty air. Yes, Verstappen's young, of course. I'm not having a go at Verstappen because, I mean, he completely lost his cool today, and he had a spin and made quite a few mistakes. Probably because he was really just furious, but I don't think Verstappen would have got past Bottas or Palmer really quicker than Sainz would have done. I mean, well, maybe. I mean, there was one moment where Sainz nearly got past Palmer and lost out quite a bit, and maybe Verstappen might have been, got through there, but really it's all just kind of luck, I think, and Sainz and Verstappen are pretty equal, and it's going to be interesting to see that relationship kind of develop over the season, who's going to come out on top, because that could possibly lead to a Red Bull drive as well, so that's pretty interesting. But great dirty air for both Toro Rossos today. They really struggled in the dirty air. They also had to make an extra pit stop as well compared to most of their rivals. So that really hurt them. They should have gone on the medium tyres straight after the red flag, but they chose the soft tyres and they paid the price with 9th and 10th from 5th and 7th on the grid. Dismal, dire day for Toro Rosso. Two Renaults then were 11th and 12th. They started 14th and 15th and made their way up to 11th and 12th. Completely different paths, but they actually ended up just 3 seconds apart over the line. Jolyon Palmer then, great race for him. I thought he was really good today. I was very impressed by his defending and his kind of just kind of his racing talent. Not in terms of pace. I mean, he didn't really have the pace, but neither does that Renault really. I think Renault, whereabouts are they? Well, I'd probably say they're about 9th or 10th fastest car. I mean, it's kind of just to say, I mean, they're probably, 9th or 10th, that was a bit wrong. Maybe about 7th or 8th fastest car. I mean, they were seemingly ahead of both Manor and Sauber. McLaren, are they ahead of the Haas team though? It is kind of difficult to judge, but nevertheless, Palmer then was 11th. Magnussen had contact on the opening lap, but did manage to get back to 12th, so good recovery drive from Kevin, and hopefully he can be back in Bahrain, and hopefully Renault can score their first points of the season. Maybe the car will work better in Bahrain, but I'm not too sure. I think it's very engine dominated as well, Bahrain, so it could be a difficult race for the Renault boys, but their Renault engine does seem a lot better. We saw that they were able to fend off the Toro Rosso for quite some way, so good race I think for Renault. They will probably be impressed with what they've done this weekend, and it's a bit of a shame Palmer couldn't get points on his debut. Sergio Perez, one of his worst races of his Formula 1 career, to be honest. Not all down to him, but he really couldn't get the tyres to work, which is unusual for Perez, and they just had a really torrid time of it. Sergio Perez, he made 2 stops, and his stop for medium tyres was right before the red flag came out. Horrible timing for Perez. He really should have been 8th or 9th in this race. I mean, if the red flag hadn't come out, he'd have been, around there. If it had, but he hadn't pitted the lap before the red flag, then he'd been right up there with Hülkenberg. So it was a real shame for Perez. There seems to be a bit of a lack of pace from Force India, and I think they might follow a similar pattern to what they did last year, and they should get better as the season goes on. They got big upgrades planned as well, so let's see how their season develops, and let's see how the season of McLaren develops. Yeah, disappointing race for them after a very good qualifying, I thought, and I think it was a 12th and 13th for qualifying, but this time in the race they were 14th, and Alonso, of course, with that huge crash with Esteban Gutierrez. Yeah, just a quick word on Button then. They made 2 bad pit stop calls, came in at completely the wrong time, put on the wrong tyre, so on and so forth. Just basically a bad day for Jenson Button. Bad day for Felipe Nasr as well. Not too much to say about Sauber really, apart from just a general lack of pace. And Sauber and Manor, yeah, I can't see them, either of them scoring points just from this first impression of their car in a race trim. Can't see either of them getting in the points, but we'll have to see. I think maybe one of them could sneak in there, but I think Sauber, to be honest, have moulded into Caterham. Caterham and Marussia have pretty much become a Manor and Sauber, so yeah, interesting one there, I think, between Sauber and Manor. Pascal Wehrlein, what a great start from him, and then it all just went backwards, really. Lost out in the pit stops, lost out after the red flag. Really unlucky for Pascal Wehrlein. I mean, would have he really been able to hold off the likes of Magnussen, Perez, Button, Nasr? I'm not too sure. Gutierrez, of course, before his crash. It's difficult to say, but still a great first race from Pascal Wehrlein. It's a shame he doesn't have a quicker car, because you can already see he's a big talent. But I think an improvement needed as well from him. Hopefully in qualifying in Bahrain, had a pretty dire time, of course, where he was out-qualified by Rio Haryanto, who sadly had a transmission failure today and retired from the race. Yeah, not a good race from Haryanto in terms of that, but he had generally quite good pace. He was there or thereabouts early on, managed to stay with the pack, so it's just good to see really the Manners racing amongst the pack, although at the end of the day, they finished pretty much where they would finish last year, and of course that's last by quite a long way. Pascal, though, should be a lot closer, and let's hope Rio can get his first finish in Bahrain. Ericsson then had a failure, an engine failure apparently. He felt vibrations, had to come into the pits and retire. Also got a drive-through as well for the team personnel being attending to the car. Too close to the red flag, which was, just a bit silly really from the Sauber team. I guess that was an error which they had no choice but to break that rule in order to fix something wrong with the car. And Verline 16th and the retirements. Ericsson, Raikkonen, of course, with that fire. Big shame for him, one of his best races of this current era. Arianzo, Gutierrez and Alonso had that huge collision. Great to see that they're both okay. And Danny Fiat failed to start the race for the second year in a row. Torrid look for the Russian, but of course he'll be back in Bahrain. And so will I as well for my preview and review. And, maybe not the preview, I think. It depends. I mean, I want to do some kind of race forecasting for Bahrain, but we'll see how all that goes. But anyway, you guys can leave your race rating and your driver of the day down in the comment section below. Just to confirm, mine was Romain Grosjean and my race rating was 8 out of 10. A really solid way to start the season. Then it's on to Bahrain we go for round 2 of the 2016 season.